Welcome to today's captivating panel discussion on the future of serverless technologies. I'm Sudin Baraokar, and it's my privilege to guide our insightful conversation today. I've been CIO and head of innovation at very large organizations, State Bank of India, Barclays, and previously with IBM and G. Today, I'm a global IT and innovation advisor, as well as founder of deep tech startups. There is a super cycle coming in cloud and digital transformation with lots of innovations evolving, especially on the compute and infrastructure side. Serverless is a cloud computing resource that accelerates application development builds and deployments of code. Serverless computing ushers in the capability for automated scaling, high availability features that are built in, and this reduces the need for constant infrastructure management jobs like capacity provisioning, patching, and other support services. So serverless can bring a very, very big benefit, especially to developers who can focus on building and running application code in an agile manner without the need for managing and provisioning servers and related backend infrastructure. Let me introduce our esteemed panel today. We have Rahul Goyal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Goyal, SVP and Head of Engineering for GP. It's a privilege to be in a company which has a mission which is very close to my heart. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk about it later.
Then we have David Anderson.
Hi, Sudin. Nice to meet everyone. Very pleased to be here. I am an architect at GP and kind of a strong supporter of serverless and this kind of different way of doing things. So very excited for the conversation today. Looking forward to it.
And finally, we have Monica.
Hello, Sudin. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me today. So I'm a engineering manager, senior engineering manager here at GP, and I work with the platforms initiative. So very close to serverless.
So our panelists are here to help us explore the dynamics of serverless, its transformative impact on businesses, its integration at globalization partners, GP, and the exciting avenues it opens for software engineers. Let's now embark on this enlightening journey together. The first question is to Rahul, and let me set the stage out here. Application ecosystems are getting very, very complex. And I've worked in very large banks, very large manufacturing, industrial conglomerates. In banks, we've got more than 400 global applications. In manufacturing conglomerates, we've got more than 800 global applications, more than 10,000 code repositories that are supporting mission critical systems, and they have to be always available and online. So Rahul, from an engineering and development perspective, how can serverless computing be used to optimize the application development, the application workloads, and accelerate their deployment?
Thank you, Sudin. I think you talked about a sliver of complexity that we're dealing with, and I think the complexity is only growing. It's, every year we have more complex systems being created because there are more capabilities out there to integrate with. There is more to do. There are more customers asking for stuff. So, to set GP's context, we are a growth stage company. We're growing fast. We're in an industry that is growing fast, and we're leading a paradigm shift. Now, in that context, as a leader of an engineering organization, my goals are getting more capabilities in the hands of the customers so that they can solve problems. So when I look at that, I start to think about what is the experience that my developers need to have so that they are happy developers. So I want happy customers. I want happy developers. I want to keep my costs down. I want a happy CFO as well. I think serverless bring these things together really well. With serverless, because we're not working, by nature, it is a stack which it is a set of technologies that allows us to scale. It's super fast to develop on. We are following the right engineering principles of creating smaller units of capabilities which talk to each other over events. And each of these capabilities is easy to scale because that's what the environments provide us by default. Now, all of this would have to be in my previous life when we were doing more of containers. This was a job. This was a heavy-duty job to create scaled applications. I think with serverless, we get it a lot more simpler. Like I said, it's faster to develop for the engineers. It's faster to deploy code and test it and bring it in the hands of the customer. And finally, my CFO is always looking at what does it cost? And, within the company, there's one person whose opinion I always honor, and that's of the CFO, because, he keeps the lights on always and keeps us on the growth path. So I think serverless brings together a lot of these aspects that I, as an engineering leader, care deeply about. Because my customers care about it, because my engineers care about it.
Thanks, Rahul. So it is not just scaling up quickly, but also making sure that serverless can also bring in the reliability factors so that on mission critical deployments, and we've got huge mission critical deployments nowadays, yes. It is also able to keep it reliable as well as keep the technical debt and technical cost of ownership down.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said any better.
Great. Thanks, Rahul. Let's move on to Dave. Dave, today's cloud infrastructure environments are multifold. I must confess that sometime back in our banks, we kept flip-flopping on our cloud strategy, right? Whether to go public or private or whatever it is. Now there's no flip-flop. Infrastructure has become mainstream. We've got public, private, hybrid, and multi-cloud environments. So can serverless offer greater agility, scalability for cloud and hybrid IT? And just to continue on that question, can you highlight how can the total cost of ownership become more competitive? How can the technical debt be managed and got under control, resulting in cost saves for the business and keep the CFO happy?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, like yourself, I've been involved in digital transformation and cloud strategies for probably around 15 to 20 years now. So I've worked with very, very large enterprises with lots of technical debt and many decades old. But the interesting thing is, for GP, cloud isn't really a question. I would say we've been born in the cloud. Our old system is completely cloud native on public cloud. So really for us, the cloud is just the way we work. But as we continue to scale, we're using technologies that will offer us that platform to scale rapidly. And for us, really, when you think of large traditional organizations, there could be maybe 25% of your engineering organization is infrastructure. We don't have that overhead. We don't have vast infrastructure we need to look after. Even in the cloud, people are building in legacy cloud infrastructure to help them with what we used to do. We don't have that. We don't have that kind of operational burden. For me, serverless is more than a technology. It's a mindset. It's a way of working. So we reduce the operational burden of our engineering teams. Effectively, our platform team is our cloud provider. They provide all that infrastructure for us. So we build capability on top of that to drive the top line of our business growth. It's not about saving bottom line. It's about creating top line growth. So we use serverless as a technology to scale the business. So really, in that regard, the way we design our workloads is single purpose business domains. We think about what's the business capability that we need to build, and we build it as quickly and as effectively and as efficiently as possible. So for us, that TCO is more about what's the total cost of creating this capability and running this capability. And that's what we think about it. And with serverless, there are some capabilities that we will just rent from a provider, as opposed to having to build everything. And again, what's the nice thing about serverless, if we're ever in a kind of a bursting environment, we only pay for what we use. So when we have high traffic, we pay more. And if traffic drops off, we pay less. So you don't have that constant overhead. So for me, serverless represents that pure vision of the cloud. We have the elastic scalability, both in performance and cost and business capability. So I think it's a perfect kind of join of your business and technology strategy, which is really important for GP at the time as we're in a kind of rapid scale phase.
Great. Thanks, Dave. That was very well answered. And thanks for highlighting the benefit of serverless, especially in terms of TCO and technical debt. Moving on to Monica, GP has been a pioneer in adopting serverless technology. And today we have to run a lot of mission critical systems, especially on the application side. I can tell you from my own experience, way back in 2017 as head of innovation in State Bank of India, the largest lender in India and one of the top 20 global banks after the merger of its subsidiaries. I have benchmarked our core banking systems at approximately 25,000 transactions per second, over 2 billion transactions in a day to cover 500 million plus customers and 700 million plus accounts. This is a very advanced, scalable, powerful core banking system in the world, where the very key aspect is how to keep this huge mission critical system running and always available. So how can serverless really be deployed and leveraged across mission critical application ecosystems to drive operational efficiency, high availability, and reliability?
Right. So we piggyback completely on our AWS as the base to support our serverless operations, right? So GP uses serverless in and out at this moment, and most of our legacy systems are also slowly moving on to the serverless technology stack. And like everybody here explained, reduces our effort on maintaining the infra. So all our dev teams and engineers get to focus more on problem solving the million problem statements that are available today. And there is a surplus of them in the EOR space, given the space itself has a lot less competitors at the moment, right? And which means irrespective of the competition, we have to put out lovely features out there that make it very efficient and useful for our consumers. So going this route, it is all about delivering fast-paced features that are useful and which have very good engineering excellence, correct? And for this, I would love to pick one of our primary examples, which is our billing module itself. It's where our EOR stands. And the billing module comprises of pricing, payroll, and accounting, which is like the core of all that we provide. So this is currently on serverless. And when it comes to high availability, reliability, and operational efficiency, I think operational efficiency is quite self-explained for serverless because the rate of delivery is like halved. And like what we deliver in quarters, now we are able to deliver in weeks in terms of agile sprints, right? And when you move to high availability, the billing module availability is in 5 months, 99.999%. And when it comes to reliability, serverless and the well-architected principles really help us with this because we go by that and we set our processes along with well-architected proposals by AWS, which means it's our workloads are scaled horizontally when required. They are taken down when not required. So as Dave mentioned, we only pay for what we use. So our operations are quite optimized, and that's where we stand.
But just to add on to what Monica just said, I think in terms of us leveraging serverless in GP, another place where we find it very useful is when we are in this transition from old system or old technology to the newer technology, it's a lot easier with serverless because by nature it is more event driven. So it's been easier to think about developing something, responding to events rather than thinking about, okay, what's happening in legacy versus not. And then you just model the right events that need to be sent across. So just that pattern actually is helpful because nobody builds any platform or any technology in an ivory tower anymore. It is an iterative process. And I think just just the fact with serverless, it makes it a lot easier to follow the iterative process.
No, thanks, Rahul. And just to continue on that, Rahul, you mentioned about event-driven architecture.
Yeah.
There is also complex event processing, CEP, right?
Yeah.
Also emerging workloads, AI analytical workloads. There's also in-memory processing. In-memory processing is innovation that I used way back during both IBM time and Barclays time, where we did this in-memory processing with SAS and Teradata, where we could optimize our workloads on the enterprise data warehouse, right? Which is even today a very large, complex platform, right? So my question is that, just to continue on the discussion, and this is both to Rahul and Dave, in terms of the event-driven architecture, complex event processing, where organizations can respond to business events in a very dynamic fashion, right? In a very dynamic, real-time or near real-time fashion. I can give you one very valid example. During COVID, and more than 3 years back, when there was a complete lockdown and there was the pandemic at its peak, it took 3 to 4 months for banks, the Reserve Bank of India, for banks, the finance ministry, the Supreme Court to come together and figure out whether a moratorium should be given to needy borrowers. And so that they could get some concession on the loan, because they had absolutely no livelihood, right? So, and how do you pay? So why should it take 3 to 4 months, right? I mean, how do you expect that needy borrower or a common citizen to survive that long? Can serverless reduce that latency? Can it reduce that time so that this technology can really help citizens and businesses on a massive scale?
Yeah, well, I can take that. I mean, to start with, I think the COVID example is very good. And in previous life, I worked for Liberty Mutual, and we had a very large payment system built on serverless, and we literally had an overnight requirement to pay millions of people an extra dividend. And with the serverless system, the scale was there. So we basically ran the workload through it and did 10x kind of scale instantly. So you do have that scale, and you don't have to design extra for it. But I think from an event-driven perspective, we have organized both our teams and our systems into domains that align with our business. So our CEO, Nicole Saran, and Chief Product and Strategy Officer, Nat Nigerian, will talk about domains. Domain of the customer, the professional, the offer, the contract. And we have effectively broken our business into domains and separate kind of entities, and they reflect right through to our teams who own those domains and to our workloads that are isolated within those domains. So within the older sort of system of orchestration, if you want to work between 3 or 4 different domains, you've got to sit and orchestrate between those things, and everything finely tuned. With an event-driven system, it's more about choreography. So when a customer is created, now all we do, the customer domain will emit a customer-created event. And everyone who should hear that will hear that and respond appropriately. So what this gives in old language, it's a decoupled system. So we can just event off. So if we need to scale a certain part of the business, we can do that independently of somewhere else. That gives us effectively a decentralized architecture with common standards and quality, and common event structures and common event backbone. But then the different business units and teams have got the flexibility to scale their own business problems as they need to. So this combination of kind of a purely event-driven architecture with all those efficiencies, with the teams thinking that way, and plus our executive leadership speaking in domains, is a really nice kind of synergy of how a technology architecture links to our business architecture.
Well, that's a great guidance, Dave, and especially when we have emerging models and emerging technologies coming in. For example, in global banks, we've got more than 700 source data systems. That's data at rest. Now also we have got data in motion and synthetic data. In large manufacturing conglomerates, we have got more than 3,500 source systems. Right, that's the complexity. And now we have to also deal with the data in motion, for which, apart from ETL, apart from the extraction, transformation, and loading, we're now using data pipelines. to deal with this fast streaming data, to deal with data in motion, maybe synthetic data, even now generative data. Can serverless be also used for these emerging models and emerging use cases like, let's say, data pipelines or data streaming, so that our source system computing can be accelerated and can give that output in the least amount of time?
I think David is best to answer that question. But I think there are different set of technologies for pipelines, which as well as for processing of the data that is coming in. Especially in GP we use what is known as a medallion architecture, which is which is about getting the data, which is raw data, processing it to curating it to the next level of refinement, which is known as the silver data. And then on top of that, you build meaningful insights, which gets into the gold layer of it. So, but specifically how a pipeline or data management would be helped by serverless, I know for sure that the fact that we are emitting events makes it a lot easier to capture. And data is the lifeblood of everything that we do today, whether it is serving our customers, knowing where customers are falling off, which screen do they find complex, insights about where the customers are in a business workflow. Everything depends on events that are being emitted. So it has greatly simplified the capture of data and emission of data. The processing itself, I'm less informed about, so David would be the best person there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, if you can, because there's a lot of compute processing that needs to be done on synthetic data, generative data, data in motion. And so can serverless be really a good technology stack to use for this data explosion across these emerging kind of models that are coming?
Yeah, well, I think there's two elements to that. I think there is our system is effectively a SaaS system. So we think in kind of the application plane, the control plane. So every message is an event, and every event is captured in our data platform. So each domain will own its own data. So we don't have a central data store. All the transactional and operational data lives within that domain, and it's evented across. So those business events will be copied down to effectively your analytical platform for further analytics. So having that kind of data standard across the entire company, which is based on our business entity model, which that's our kind of GP information model, is that's how we be very specific. When we talk about a customer, we know exactly what that means. There's standardization across the entire company. That's quite rare for large companies. Mm-hmm. And then when at the kind of on the data plane, when we take in those events, we have a very strict platform that we pipeline that data. Again, that's separate from our kind of running systems. And then with the scale of the technologies that we use, there's kind of we have the scale that however many events we can process, because that processing is happening on the AWS side. We're not building systems to do that specifically. We're offloading that to our cloud providers. So there's some of the technologies like things like Kinesis and some of the event bridge technologies that can take a huge amount of data, way more than we'll ever produce. So these have been proven out with some huge companies. So we're in good hands around how our systems will scale. We do not have to worry about can we scale the several thousands, if not several million events per minute or whatever, because that we know there's soft and hard limits that will help us through that. So we can really concentrate on designing our kind of data model and what we want from it. Again, I heard a great quote around data. People say data is the new oil. Maybe a better quote is data is like milk. It's very useful when you capture it, but can go stale quite quickly. So we try to capture that data and make use of it as quickly as possible. So we want to turn data into business insights as quick as possible.
Fantastic. Moving on to Rahul, enterprise integration has become very, very important. And we have to now integrate with AI, with IoT, with automation, with our enterprise data warehouse, with our data lakes. with low code, no code, a whole lot of ushering in a lot of technology and a lot of transformation. So in the context of enterprise integration, and we've been very successful in the past in IBM and GE and Barclays and SBI. We have used enterprise service bus in the past. We still use it, right? What kind of so how can really serverless be deployed or integrated across these application ecosystems in a seamless manner?
Yeah, I think integration is the reality of every system today. No enterprise can live without strong integration systems being in place. There's just if there are too many things going on, and everybody wants the best possible solution in their domains. So if you think about the best pattern for integrations, right? You want to think about separation of concerns. When something is happening in, let's say, Salesforce, you want to let that be happening and be scaling, while somebody else who's responding to what's happening in Salesforce can work at their own pace, right? So because the scaling requirements may be different. So I think serverless just naturally, as event-driven is a core concept of serverless, and this really just brings the integration environments really well together. So, if we have, for example, there is something happening in Salesforce for which something else needs to happening in our platform where we keep our customer data. And then based on that, something needs to happen in billing, the example that Monica gave earlier. Now, all of this orchestration today is done through events and serverless modules. So there is serverless module which is listening to what's happening in Salesforce or integrating with the Salesforce side of things. Once it figures out something, it emits a bunch of events as needed, or one or many, depending on what's happening. The platform is listening to, hey, what's happening to a customer event? When a customer event shows up, platform picks it up, and then it updates something in the customer's domain. The customer domain then says, hey, something has been updated. Are there anybody who's impacted by this? And then billing picks it up. So something, and you can see how this can be scaled. So instead of Salesforce, if the customer data is changing in another integrating enterprise system, it is very easy to actually abstract it into something that the same pattern applies without major changes across. So I think this serverless has allowed us to be decoupled and have that, and have that consistency and resiliency of integrating with these very disparate systems, built in different technologies, working in different domains, solving different customer problems. But then, in the end, a lot of these things need to come together to kind of run the business that you need to run. So it's been a godsend when it comes to integrations, actually.
And massive opportunities and massive number of use cases for all this enterprise integration using serverless. Yeah,
absolutely. And when you think about it, Sudin, these are not new concepts. Decoupling. I mean, good software engineering concepts have stood the test of time, no matter, but where we are, serverless really gives us the best implementation of these patterns. Right? So I think, it's been evolving and it has come here, and I'm sure it'll evolve from where we're at. But when I look at the models today, this really fits in the best.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That's a great point, Rahul. Just to build on that, I mean, I think you're absolutely spot on. I've been writing software for many decades. The principles have never changed. They really have never changed. They've been the same forever. I remember doing things in the 90s that we're doing now, but the abstraction is getting higher and higher, and there's a stack. And really, it's really simple for us, for our engineers. We want to be at the top of that stack. We don't want to be stuck building large things that are not needed. Let's stay to the top of that evolutionary stack and build as quickly and build on the the shoulders of giants before us, and that's really what serverless is all about. So you're absolutely right, Rahul. Those core concepts have never changed. There's just different acronyms.
Yeah, and absolutely, Dave, I completely agree with you, because I've seen from my own experiences on massive digital transformation programs that I have done in large organizations, usage of all these emerging technologies like serverless also brings in a lot of transformation at a software engineering level, at an infrastructure level, at a customer experience level, which all really adds to the big innovations and transformations that we can see in the future. I think this is going to be a further expansion and explosion. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Rahul. So let's move on to Monica, and the question is on skilling, upskilling. Right, software engineers have to upskill themselves, reskill themselves, adapt to the emerging tech, emerging models. So how does a shift to serverless architecture increase the technical vitality of the engineers? And how can they build this expertise across the serverless technology stack and integrate it and make it seamless across the entire enterprise technology stacks? And let me tell you that enterprise technology stacks are extremely complex, and a full year can go into it just trying to figure out what it is really. But very, very important, right? Very, very important, because these kind of technologies like serverless can really not only usher in efficiencies, but can also increase the technical vitality of organizations. And I've worked in organizations which have had a workforce right from 150,000 people up to 600,000 people, right? So would you like to highlight on the software engineering upskilling and reskilling that needs to happen?
Sure. So I can talk about this from my own personal experience, because when I joined GP, I had no experience on serverless whatsoever. Going through huge documentations on any portal like AWS intimidates any engineer who has a lot of experience as well. Because when it sounds new, you get scared and you don't understand head to tail of white papers. And so this happened to me. And so what really helped is having experts like David Anderson here in the team, right? So being able to talk about it is really a vital part of any upscaling. And in the initial days, I think it's okay to make mistakes on an experimental ground to learn. And GP has enabled that for most of us. And when we talk about more around upscaling, there are a lot of certifications available on AWS, and I think organizations should really use them well and give them a lot of credit as well, because it's not necessarily about getting a certificate in hand. It's more about getting the live knowledge and confidence to work on such a huge and vast environment. And when you spoke about tech vitality, today's engineers are so full of potential, and they're so vibrant and wanting to learn and be vital in their technical skills. And that makes our organization itself. And I can vouch for this, that GP is overly flowering with highly potential engineers all over. And when they have that intense curiosity in them, keeping up the tech vitality is never a problem. And when you're in a nice environment, a healthy environment, which gives you healthy competition, whoever feels a little out of space, I think the leadership helps them pick up the slack, because they understand, because the leaders also have gone through the same tension when they started out. So it's about using up the resources that are available. I think this is core for anybody in engineering, like being up to date, being curious, going behind something instead of sitting and waiting for somebody to teach you. So I think it's part and parcel of all of our everyday lives to enable this and present the right kind of resources to keep it up. And it's just not on the organization, and I think it's up to every individual.
Fantastic. Thanks, Monica. So open question to all, and this is coming to the critical point of security. So security is become very critical to organizations. It's always been critical and now become even more critical. And in terms of criticality, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of security posture management, can serverless build better security posture management? Can going serverless improve data protection and data integrity? Can we also align serverless to use cases like GDPR, RegTech, regulatory tech? So can we leverage, serverless to bring in, usher in better cybersecurity?
I think it's a great question. I mean, I can
Open question. Yeah.
kick off.
Thanks.
I think for me, what serverless really is, it's very pure cloud principles. Some of the purest cloud principles are about, least privileged access, narrowing the attack vector. And what we do from not just specific teams, every team will perform well-architected processes and practices, go through well-architected as a sprint practice, and threat model their domains regularly. So we spend a lot of time as secure by design, putting those principles in place from the very start. And then from our Xley environment, we have a lot of scanning right the way through as code moves through the pipeline. And then we have very modern cloud environments where we have auto remediation and all our dashboards lit up with all our non-functional. So from when pens put to paper from the very start right through to production, there's constant kind of practices that evolve with the workload. And it's not just the job of our security team, it's also the job of our engineers, our leaders, our business. It's job number one that we take everything. So if you think of a serverless workload, there's a very narrow attack vector, and then you stick to the cloud principles and you have data isolation. So we have some key principles that we start with the teams. You talk about, shift left security. It's right across the spectrum, how we work in our serverless environment. So for me, really, serverless is a proxy for kind of good cloud native principles.
And just to continue on that, Dave, like we have CSPM as a very, very good best practice in the cloud security posture management. Can we in the future integrate or adopt serverless with CSPM to bring out the best of both? Is there
I would say,
yeah,
I've many years experience in securing service workloads in the cloud. One of the challenges in the early days, it's some of the security tools were designed for container workloads, and they were difficult to work in serverless environments. So some people would say security doesn't work with serverless. The real stat was some security tools don't work with serverless. If you look at the processes and the control behind the processes, the controls absolutely work with serverless. They're very valid. We need to rethink our processes and tools, which thankfully the industry is starting to do now. There was a Datadog survey about the adoption of serverless, which said something like over 70% of organizations now use serverless technologies. So with this increased adoption, I think we're at the crest of a wave with this type of technology.
Yeah, in fact, as head of innovation, we've also set up data and network sandboxes to test and validate solutions from startups and from our IT vendors. I think using the serverless technology along with these sandboxes required to validate solutions, I think could be a good use case for it going forward.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly, we have many AWS accounts, and we can spin up an account just instantly, test something out, tear it down. So that ephemeral stack, spin something up, run a test case, tear it down. You can do that within a matter of hours.
So given he mentioned AWS accounts, that also brings in a strong identity foundation, right? Like we do excessive access control, and in every layer possible, we have in-depth security controls in place. As we transmit data in and out of multiple domains, we secure it. And it's not just about serverless, it's all about basic engineering principles of how we move or transmit data across the end-to-end system as well. And threat modeling is a good check on top of that, right? Threat modeling helps us evaluate this as a checklist. So it's a strong culture inculcated in all our engineers, as we go along the security principles.
Fantastic. Thanks, Monica.
Just to add to that, I think just the fact that serverless engineering lends itself to have more granular, smaller chunks of capabilities built, right? Which, in any kind of in any kind of security management, you're always worried about the blast radius. So how far can this go? And by having this smaller chunks of capabilities running independently, potentially in their own AWS or cloud accounts, that adds a great amount of sure controls over the blast radius that we may have. So I think, again, all good engineering principles, but how the technology lends itself to these actually makes it easier for us.
Yeah, Rahul, absolutely. That's a great insight. And just to continue with you, Rahul, are there any, as engineers, migrate, transition, or as organizations migrate, transition, integrate, and implement serverless solutions? And this is an open question to all. Are there any templates or any strategies that y'all also keep ready so that it can be, this transition or migration can be accelerated?
Let me talk a little bit about the organization side and let David and Monica talk more about technology. It is a transformation. It is not the same as earlier. And if we implement new technology with older thinking, sometimes you might just end up with the same problems again. So I think it's important to understand what the technology does and how it works, and giving that time and space for engineers to learn and unlearn. It is a paradigm shift in the way that you work. And it can be frustrating sometimes because when you know something, it's much easier, right? And when you're learning something, it just takes a time before you develop the same level of competency in that. So I think from an organization leadership perspective, it's really important that you create the time and space for engineers to learn this, experiment with different things, and create that culture where you can learn from each other. That's the best growth organization that you can get. Right? But it's a journey, and it's a journey a lot faster than a lot of previous transformations. I mean, when you think about on-prem to cloud transformation, that was huge, and it took many, many years to do this. This is not of that scale kind of thing, but there is still learning and unlearning that needs to happen.
Great.
I'll add to that from a different perspective of somebody who is in the core of these migrations that are happening. So serverless is something that we are doing anew, and then we have old classic or legacy systems in place. And when we start out serverless, it does not mean we have the whole proposal executed right from the start. We do it in multiple phases. That's how any technology progresses, or a product progresses, or how executions progress, right? So we have multiple milestones in being perfect, in reaching the perfect solution. And quite unfortunately, the perfect solution also keeps evolving over time, right? So we are always running behind the perfect solution. So when this happens, say there is a version 1 of a solution that we're working on, and the classic system has to communicate with the version 1, then we'll have to build a bridging solution to enable this. And there might be another aspect of the solution built in version 2. So we'll have to enable communication between all the 3 systems. So this is an ever-growing problem. So this is mostly around integrations. Migrations come into play when we want to sunset something that we've already built. So I think as much as execution is important here, coming up with solutions is important here. We should be very cautious about when we decide to let go of something that we built earlier, or else we're going to be maintaining too many systems at the same time, and that is definitely not going to be efficient for us in any way. That's
Great.
about it.
And just to add to that, I think,
Yeah, David.
it's not really a move to serverless, it's more about modernization. Many companies have migrated to the cloud. After migration, modernization always follows. That's a fact. It's not if it happens, it's when it happens. We're lucky in GP that we've always been on that modernization journey. So for me, there's probably four core critical areas: clarity of purpose, be very, very clear on what you're building for. Your engineers should also be aligned with your CEO, that we know what business problem we're solving. And we hire very smart people as engineers. Let's let them solve business problems. Let's not constrain them. So have a very clear clarity of purpose. As Monica
Right.
said earlier, you have to create the right environment for success. Hire good engineers, let them work. Hire good leaders, have them coach people, create a learning environment. Fail fast, create that environment where we can, have some enabling constraints and guardrails, but let the teams move fast. Have a strong developer experience. Invest in developer experience, developer enablement, good pipelines, good tools, good cloud providers. So give your engineers the tools to go well. And then fourth and final, think about quality, about well architected, about strong cloud accounts. Think about these things as things that will sort of help that journey as you move forward. And I think that's really that modernization journey. And many companies move to the cloud and then they realize they now have to modernize.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. So we come to the final couple of questions, and GP's success stories have become global best practices, very good implementations. So can any of you all highlight on any of the challenges or lessons learned during the journey of implementing serverless solutions, as well as any showstoppers, any potential showstoppers and risks in going serverless? What does it need to take the shot and move forward? And what are some of the pointers for early explorers of this technology?
It's not an easy journey. People sometimes say serverless is faster and easier. It's difficult. We're at the cutting edge of technology. We want to hire engineers who have a growth mindset and want to learn. We're all on a learning journey. So I think if you're of a fixed mindset, this is not the right technology for you. It's rapidly evolving. We talk about an evolution architecture. There's often we have a business problem and we are not quite sure how we're going to solve it, and we'll try different things. So having that experimental growth mindset, we're learning new technology. That's a difficult space to work in. As an engineer, that's where I want to be. I always thought once you go stale as an engineer, that's when you start to worry. We're constantly evolving. So I don't be thinking it's an easy journey. Second, as an organization, if you haven't started your modernization journey yet, I don't worry about, it's too late or I'm behind. You can leapfrog your competition. You know what I mean? Because the technology is always newer. Some of the very, very early adopters have actually built up legacy. So it's always a good time to look at the latest and greatest from your cloud provider and see what they're doing. So don't be afraid to lean into the technology and the new solutions out there. And then third, go back to what we said earlier. There are core software engineering principles that have never changed. So again, I'm biased. Invest in good technical leadership who can help you navigate that path. Like it's a difficult journey, but it's not impossible.
No, I completely agree with you. On Dave, and I've been working on mainframes and distributed and internet and AI and automation and low code, no code, and everything has worked, right? In technology, all the technology stacks, all the engineering and development that we've done, right from COBOL to Java to now low code, no code, and now serverless. Everything has really worked. So thanks for that. So as we conclude, a final question. And this is again to all of you all. What would be the top advice you all would give to organization leaders and engineers to sync up serverless, importantly with DevOps, SecOps, AIOps, MLOps, data ops? This is very, very important, right? As we ensure that we also bring the transformation to the entire engineering and development. So, what would your advice be?
I think it's important to think about serverless in a wholesome way. It is not, Dave started that with that comment. It is a mindset. It's a paradigm shift. So and it's also important to apply that in the right context. So there are problems where serverless works great, and I'm sure there are problems where containers work great. So make sure that you're doing the evaluation on the right principles about what works. And no technology is bad. It's only the implementation of a technology that goes bad typically. So understanding your usage patterns, workload patterns. So looking at what is the organization and engineering journey that you need to take. So think about it more holistically. It is not just a stack change. It is a mindset change. So the more you talk about it and bring different parts of the organization, the ones that you listed out, so everybody's point of view matters when you're making the transformation to serverless. But don't shy away from it either. I think it'll serve you well in the long run, short and long, actually, pretty quickly, if you do take the leap.
No, absolutely, completely agree with you, Rahul. And in all the organizations I've served in, very large and successful organizations, I've been always told to fail fast, take the shot, just move on, do the innovation transformation, and get the results. And I've seen that all this great transformation has really benefited the organization, benefited the customers, has ushered in even newer thinking and approaches around this. And I'm sure that just one last question, a sub question would be anything on the emerging hype cycle on serverless technology you would like to share, anything that is further going to transform on the serverless side?
Pass that on to David. He's in the hype cycle, I think, himself. So.
I think, well, just two things on the previous question. The thing with the DevOps and SecOps, serverless it's a whole team sport. So at GP, we talk about the GP dream team, that we're one big team. DevOps, I remember when DevOps was created, it was trying to bring two silos together, but they've actually, in some companies, have created a third silo. So there's really just one team. So once you connect your teams up with a combined purpose, that's when the magic happens. And one of the things that we find is very exciting at the minute is the whole area of Gen AI, generative AI. And we're finding ways of integrating generative AI and AI technologies into what we do very quickly, which for me, that's a case of, and what you hear many people say about AI, will this replace something? And what AI actually does is it augments your ability to do certain things. So when we think about, for me, I don't think of serverless as a technology, it's a way of working where you're kind of there's a cohesion. So we can bring in something like Gen AI and the latest services to augment and improve what we're doing. So for me, it's about, there are no game-changing technologies, there's game-changing mindsets. And for me, that's what serverless is.
Fantastic. So I'm done with all the questions. Thank you all. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Monica. It's been a great insight. Thank you for all your expertise and insights that you all have shared. Serverless is truly a transformative tech stack that can create highly scalable, reliable, and high availability of compute resources on the cloud, as well as hybrid IT. This will help accelerate application development, improve infrastructure and application efficiency, reduce total cost of ownership and technical debt. Thank you for joining us. Wish you all the very best in your transformative journeys. Thank you.